All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast where we're covering the Big Ten transfer moves. We've got Iowa we're diving into today. They made quite a bit of moves. We're going to take it off with Marcus and hear who he likes the best for a transfer and maybe some other transfers that stand out to him.
Yeah, I mean, Bennett Sturts, it's my favorite transfer. I mean, we saw him kind of burst onto the scene last year, became a kind of a fan favorite, through March. Last year averaged 19 for almost 6 assists on basically 50-40% shooting. So super efficient, and really can do it all, create knockdown shots from 30 feet, really kind of polarizing, fun watch. So I'm excited to see him at a power conference school now at Iowa. And then another one, Brendan Housen coming over, just a big time shooter, averaged 11 points a game last year on 43% from three. And, for anyone who's familiar with his game, took 232 threes last year of his 277 shot attempts. So, big time shooter, that's going to be playing alongside Sturts. They should be able to knock it down at a pretty high clip playing alongside each other. But, obviously a whole new look for Iowa this year with new coach Ben McCollum coming over, and finally letting go of Fran McCaffrey. So, a different look for the Hawkeyes.
Cody, I know you're a big Sturts fan, but let's hear a little bit about him and the other transfers.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Sturts fan, but I'm pretty close to being the biggest Bennett Sturts fan. I think he's just a ridiculously good player. He's going to be one of the best players in the country from night number one next season, in my opinion. I mean, the efficiency that he provided with the role that he had at Drake last year was pretty ridiculous. I mean, he had a 56% effective field goal percentage, 96 percentile scoring at the rim, 55th percentile in the mid range, and shot 40% from three with a really high volume of his 3-point shots coming off the dribble. So, I mean, he was literally everything for that offense, and to provide the efficiency that he brought was pretty insane. I mean, he gets to the line at a high clip for a guard as well, 39% free throw attempt rate, and he converted these at nearly an 80% clip. I think in this, half court style of offense, this team really is never going to get out in transition, which is a completely different aspect than Iowa has ever provided. Like Fran McCaffrey always wants to get out in transition, and they played one of the fastest paces in the country. We're probably going to see the slowest pace in the entire country with Ben McCollum at the helm. I believe Drake was the slowest pace by a decent amount last season. So being patient in the half court for a Ben McCollum guard is extremely important, and Bennett Sturts is one of the best at it in the entire country. Like, he'll reuse a ball screen 2 or 3 times just until he gets the opening that he wants, and he's always finding ways to generate open looks for himself. And I think his burst and physicality are pretty underrated traits as well. And he uses angles well, and he has really good touch. He's a fantastic passer. He had a 34% assist rate on a 13% turnover rate with all the responsibility he had. He was one of 4 players in the country last season with an assist rate over 30% and a turnover rate under 13.5%. So there really isn't anything that he did poorly last season. And he's also a really good defender as well. So, I mean, he's one of the best gets in the portal. Obviously, he's following Ben McCollum to Iowa, but I think he could have played at basically any school that he wanted to.
Do we see much of the same from him moving up to the Big Ten, a little tougher conference, or do we even see him improve maybe? What do you guys think?
I'll go ahead. I think we honestly see him be even more efficient because now he has an actual weapon in the front court now with Alvaro Folgueras. I mean, he's a guy that he can work with in the pick and pop game. He didn't really have any other floor spacers to work with, especially in the front court last year at Drake. It was, there's other guys coming in from Drake, Cam Manyao and Tavion Banks, who are mostly providing their value on the offensive glass and kind of as role men, but they didn't take any shots really outside of the paint last year. And Fulgaris is going to be able to provide that as a really talented perimeter shot maker. And he's a guy that you can kind of run offense through a little bit. If you want to give Bennett Sturts a breather at any point in the game, I think Fulgaris can handle some of the playmaking duties and scoring duties. Although I don't think Bennett Sturts came off the floor one time for Drake last season. So it was pretty insane what he was able to do. But I do think that now that Fulgaris is there to provide some playmaking and shot making, it's going to open up Sturts' game even more.
Marcus, do you agree the supporting cast elevates Sturts' game a little bit?
Yeah, and I also think like I was talking about, also having Hausen to knock down some shots, to take some pressure off of Sturts to make shots. Obviously, he's still going to be super efficient, but having a guy that can knock down threes at a 40-45% clip at high volume is going to certainly help too. And then to Cody's point about Maniau and Banks, both those guys play extremely hard, high motor guys that are going to generate extra looks for Sturts, for Hausen. I expect Sturts to be highly as successful, if not more. I mean, it should be fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, a lot of changes for the Hawkeyes. Do we think they got better? Do we think they got worse? How do we feel about this new cast? Cody,
I think they definitely got better. I mean, this Iowa team really struggled last season. They weren't really ever in the tournament picture, and I think this team is squarely in the tournament picture this year. I know the talent across the board on the offensive end isn't fantastic, but I do think the star power of Bennett Sturts, and I think Fulgaris is a pretty underrated guy who does a lot of different things on both ends of the floor. Like you're going to be able to play through him in the post. He's going to be able, catch and shoot wise, he was very good as well. I believe he was like 42% on catch and shoot opportunities last year, which is really good for a 6'9" front court piece. So, and he gets on the offensive glass as well. But I do expect this team to be firmly in the tournament picture.
Marcus, do you agree with this? Better team.
Yeah, I mean, they're better. I think like the one thing with Ben McCollum's teams, right, is they're going to compete because of the pace that they play at, right? They're going to defend. They're going to play a slow pace offensively. So they're going to be in a lot of games, unless they're just like not shooting the ball well that night. But they're going to run the shot clock down. They should be able to stay in most games, even if there is a talent deficiency. So I do expect them to be right in the mix, for the tournament. I feel like they're probably like I don't know, maybe back end of the top third, like middle of the pack, I guess, of the Big Ten. That's kind of where I see them right now, but they're fully, capable, I think, of making the tournament.
Yeah, can you give us a ceiling and a floor, kind of what you're looking at?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that they could maybe be in that, like 8, 9, 10 range as like a floor. Maybe they could maybe get up to like a 6. I don't know. I just don't know how high the ceiling is. I don't know if they get really like past a 6 seed in my eyes.
Cody, what are your predictions?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar. I think they're like absolute, like the basement is middle of the pack in the Big Ten. I don't see them falling that much further just because they're going to be a great defensive team led by McCollum. And then all of those pieces that he's bringing in from Drake. I mean, he brought 5 of his guys over, like didn't touch on like Cale Combs and Isaiah Howard, who are going to play a role for the perimeter defense. I think Isaiah Howard is one of the more underrated perimeter defenders, or will be one of the more underrated perimeter defenders in the Big Ten next season. And like his smaller role, his offensive game is a little bit limited, especially like as a shooter. But yeah, I would say the floor, middle of the pack in the Big Ten, potential bubble team, just because they might lose to some teams that they really shouldn't lose to. We saw that at Drake last year. I believe I think they took a loss to Missouri State, who was like near the bottom of the Missouri Valley. Evansville took them to overtime, I think twice, they were actually the bottom of the Missouri Valley. So they could lose a few games that they're not supposed to, but they have the ability to beat anybody in the country with their style of play, with their extremely slow pace. They're going to grind games out. So I'd call their ceiling, like Marcus said, probably 6, maybe a 5, and maybe win a couple tournament games. But like I said, just the offensive talent across the board, like outside of Sturts and Fulgaris, and then the shooting talent of Brendan Housen is, it's pretty thin.
Any final thoughts for these guys?
I'm excited to see Sturts at a power conference level.
Yeah.
Ben McCollum at a power conference level I think it'll be fun. So I'm excited, really, not even like looking past this year, for Ben McCollum to kind of see what he turns Iowa into over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's it going to look like in 2030?
Cody, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited just to see a change coming in Iowa City, and just to touch on Sturts one more time. I think he has a real opportunity to become a top 10, 15 pick in next year's draft, just because we're recording this on draft night. So I do think he has all the talent in the world. He's a little bit limited as an athlete, but the efficiency that he brought to Drake with his role, like, I'll say that again, like, it was just ridiculous what he was able to do.
All right, that wraps it up for Iowa. As always, thank you guys for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.